I am 32 years old, and for 10 of those years, I was married to a man who loved the idea of a wife more than he loved me. His name is Mark. He is 35. We built a life together, or so I thought. We started with very little, just two young people with ambition. My ambition was to build a home, a partnership. His ambition was to build an empire and to be seen as the king of it. I worked alongside him day and night in the early years of his company. My name is on the founding documents. My ideas formed the backbone of our first successful projects. But as the money grew, my role began to shrink in his story. He became the visionary, the genius. I became the supportive wife who hosted lovely dinner parties. Our money was technically our money. It sat in a joint account that I could see, but it was never truly mine to use. Every significant expense was a discussion, and every discussion ended with Mark's approval. He was the one who managed the investments. He was the one who spoke with our private banker. He liked to say he was protecting me from the stress of it all. I now know he was not protecting me.
He was controlling me.
He was making me a guest in my own life, and I was so busy trying to be the perfect partner that I let him. His family never helped. His mother, Eleanor, saw me as a temporary fixture. She believed her son, her brilliant Mark, deserved a woman who came from old money, not a woman who helped make new money. She would make small comments at family gatherings. Comments about my simple background. Comments about my taste in art, which she called uneducated. Mark would laugh it off. He would tell me she did not mean it. He would say she was from a different generation. But he never defended me. Not once. His silence was a quiet agreement with her. It was another way to make me feel small. The betrayal did not happen all at once. It was a slow erosion of trust, a series of small paper cuts to my heart. But the thing that finally broke me, the thing that I could not ignore, was a charge on our joint account. I checked our finances every Friday morning. It was a habit from the early days, when every dollar mattered. I still did it, mostly out of routine. On this particular Friday, I logged in and saw a pending transaction that made my breath catch in my throat. It was from a very exclusive, very famous jeweler. The amount was $2 million. I stared at the number for a long time. $2 million. It was a staggering sum, even for us. It was more than the down payment on our first home. It was more than I had spent on anything, ever. There was no note next to the transaction. Just the name of the jeweler and the terrifying string of zeros. My first thought was fraud. Someone had stolen our information. I felt a surge of panic, followed by a strange sense of relief. Fraud was something we could fight. It was an external problem we could solve together. But a small, cold voice in the back of my mind whispered that it was not fraud. Mark had been different lately.
He was distant.
He was working late more often than ever. He guarded his phone like it held state secrets. When I asked him who he was texting, he would say it was just work. He would get angry, accusing me of not trusting him. He was turning everything back on me, making me feel like the one with the problem. I had been trying to ignore the signs. I wanted to believe in the man I married. I wanted to believe that our life together was real. That $2 million charge was a truth I could no longer ignore. It was a bright, flashing signal that the life I thought I had was a lie. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that this was not an investment. This was not for us. This was a betrayal so large, so audacious, that it left me breathless. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just sat in my home office, staring at the screen, and I felt a profound and terrible calm wash over me. The time for being a supportive wife was over. The time for ignoring the paper cuts was over. I did not know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I was going to find out what he had spent $2 million on. And he was going to regret it. I waited until he came home that evening. He walked in, smiling, and kissed me on the cheek. It felt like the kiss of a stranger. He talked about his day, about a deal he had closed. He was charming and confident, the man everyone saw and admired. I let him talk. I made us dinner. We sat at the large dining table in our beautiful home, a home I had helped build, and I felt like an actress in a play. Every moment was a performance. I was playing the part of the loving wife, while inside, my heart was turning to ice. Finally, when dinner was over, I decided to ask. I kept my voice even. I did not want to sound accusatory, not yet. I needed to see how he would lie. Mark, I was looking at our account today. I began. He looked up from his wine, a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it annoyance? Or was it fear? Okay, he said slowly. Is everything all right?
There was a very large charge, I said.
From a jeweler. $2 million. I watched his face carefully. He did not look surprised. He looked prepared. He put down his glass and folded his hands on the table, a gesture he used in business meetings when he was about to control the conversation.
Yes.
I was going to tell you about that, he said, his voice smooth as silk. I waited. I did not say a word. I just looked at him, letting the silence stretch. It is an investment, Clara, he said. A rare diamond. They are much more stable than the stock market right now. A tangible asset. It is for us. For our future. The lie was so simple, so plausible. A few years ago, I would have believed him. I would have felt silly for questioning him. But not anymore. Too many other things did not add up. An investment, I repeated. My voice was flat. You spent $2 million on a diamond without talking to me first. I wanted to surprise you, he said, turning on the charm. I knew you would worry about the amount, so I handled it. You know I have a good eye for these things. Trust me. I felt a surge of anger.
He was not just lying to me.
He was insulting my intelligence. He was using the same condescending tone he always used when it came to money. The tone that said, "Don't worry your pretty little head about it." I would like to see it, I said. His smile tightened. It is not here. It is being held in a secure vault at the jeweler's. For insurance purposes. We can go see it next week if you want. Another lie. Another delay. He was stalling. He thought I was a fool. He thought he could manage me, just like he managed his employees and his deals. That was the moment I knew my marriage was over. The love I had for him curdled into something else, something cold and hard. It was resolve. Okay, Mark, I said, standing up from the table. An investment. He looked relieved. He thought he had handled it. He thought he had won. Exactly, he said, smiling again. Now you see. Nothing to worry about. I walked out of the dining room without another word. He did not know that I had just declared a silent war. He thought he was in control. He had no idea that he had just handed me all the ammunition I would ever need. He had underestimated me for the last time. And I was going to make him pay for it. Not just for the money, but for the years of being made to feel small. For the lies. For the condescending smiles. For everything. The battle had just begun, and he did not even know he was on the battlefield. The next morning, I woke up before him. The space between us in the bed felt like a chasm. I got up, dressed, and went to my office. I closed the door and sat at my desk, the same desk where I had first seen the charge. The lie he told me last night played over and over in my mind. It is an investment, Clara. The ease with which he said it was what chilled me the most. He had been practicing that lie. He had been ready for me to ask. This was not a spontaneous decision. This was a plan. I pulled up the account again. The charge was no longer pending. It was complete. $2 million gone. I felt a strange sense of detachment. The anger from last night had cooled into a sharp, focused clarity. I needed more than just a suspicion. I needed proof. I needed to know exactly what he was doing before I made my next move. My first call was to my best friend, Sarah. I had known her since college. She was the one person in the world who knew the real story of my marriage, not the perfect picture we presented to the world. I told her everything. The distant behavior, the secret phone calls, and now the $2 million charge. A $2 million diamond investment that he did not tell you about? Sarah said. Her voice was laced with disbelief. Clara, that is not an investment. That is a getaway fund. Or worse. I know, I said quietly.
He was so smooth, Sarah.
The lie was so polished. It was like he was reading from a script. Of course it was, she said. Men like Mark, they think they are smarter than everyone. They think they can get away with anything because they have money. What are you going to do? I am going to find out the truth, I said. All of it. But I have to be smart about this. He cannot know that I am looking. You need to protect yourself, Clara, Sarah warned. Financially. You helped build that company. Half of that money is yours, and you know his mother will be in his ear telling him to cut you out completely. She was right. Eleanor would see this as an opportunity to finally get rid of the girl from this simple background. I know, I said. I need evidence. Something concrete that he cannot deny or twist. Hire someone, Sarah said firmly. A private investigator. It is what they are for. Do not try to do this all yourself. You are too close to it. The thought of hiring a stranger to follow my husband made me feel sick. It felt like such a violation, a final admission that everything we had was a sham. But Sarah was right. I was too emotional. I needed a professional who could look at the situation with cold, hard facts. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I will. And Clara, she added, her tone softening. Be careful. He is a cornered animal, and he does not even know he is in the corner yet. That is when they are most dangerous. After I hung up with Sarah, I felt a little stronger. Just talking to someone who believed me, who did not think I was paranoid, made a world of difference. My next step was more difficult. I needed to understand our financial situation better, without raising any alarms with Mark. I decided to call our private banker, Mr. Harris. He was an older gentleman, always very polite and professional. Mark had been the one to primarily deal with him, but I had met him on several occasions. I hoped he would be willing to speak with me. I rehearsed what I was going to say before I dialed his number. I needed to sound calm and casual. Mr. Harris, this is Clara Vance, I said when he answered. Mrs. Vance, how lovely to hear from you, he said warmly. How can I help you today? I hope I am not bothering you, I said. I am just trying to get a better handle on our portfolio. Mark has been so busy lately, and I want to be more involved. I was hoping you could walk me through some of the more recent major transactions. It was a thin excuse, but it was the best I could come up with. There was a slight pause on the other end of the line. Of course, Mrs. Vance. I would be happy to. However, as you know, Mark is listed as the primary on the account. For any detailed discussions about specific transactions, especially of a significant nature, I would typically need his authorization or for him to be on the call. My heart sank. It was the barrier Mark had built, the one that kept me on the outside. I understand completely, I said, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. Perhaps you could just give me a general overview then? For example, I noticed a very large purchase from a jeweler. I assume that was for an investment-grade stone, as Mark mentioned. Is that a common strategy you are seeing with your clients right in this market? I was fishing. I was hoping his professional duty to talk about market trends would give me something without breaking any confidentiality rules. Mr. Harris cleared his throat. Well, tangible assets like high-end gems can certainly be a part of a diversified portfolio. They can be a hedge against inflation. However, the purchase you are referring to, it was coded as a personal retail purchase, not as a formal investment through our asset management division. The distinction is a technical one, but it can have implications for insurance and tax purposes. My blood ran cold. Coded as a personal retail purchase. That was not an investment. That was a gift. He had not just lied about the purpose. He had lied about the very nature of the transaction. I see, I said, my voice tight. That is very helpful to know. Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Harris. I appreciate your time. Any time, Mrs. Vance, he said. I hung up the phone, my hand trembling slightly. It was proof. It was a small piece of proof, but it was real. He had lied. The $2 million was not for our future. It was a personal purchase. A very, very personal purchase. The image of another woman flashed in my mind. A woman wearing a $2 million diamond. A diamond that I had paid for. The ice in my heart spread, chilling me to the bone. Sarah was right. I needed a professional. It was time to find a private investigator. And it was time to start separating my life from his, quietly and carefully, before he had the chance to leave me with nothing. I spent the rest of the day researching private investigators online. I felt like I was in a spy movie, using a private browsing window and deleting my history every few minutes. I looked for firms that specialized in financial investigations and marital infidelity. I read reviews, checked credentials, and made a short list of 3 possibilities. I needed someone discreet, thorough, and ruthless. That evening, Mark came home late again. He was in a buoyant mood, humming to himself as he poured a glass of scotch. He seemed to think our conversation about the investment had settled the matter. He believed I was satisfied, that I had gone back to being the trusting, non-confrontational wife he had so carefully cultivated. It was frightening how little he knew me, or perhaps how little he cared to know me. "Big day," he announced, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "We are landing the Henderson account. It is going to be huge for us." "That is wonderful, dear," I said, my voice a perfect imitation of wifely pride. "I was thinking," he continued, "we should take a trip soon. Maybe to Italy. Just the 2 of us. We deserve it." The offer was a classic Mark move. A grand gesture to smooth over any lingering doubts, a shiny object to distract me. A trip to Italy. A few months ago, I would have been thrilled. Now, it just felt like another lie, another performance I would have to endure. "That sounds lovely," I said. "We can talk about it this weekend." He smiled, content. Perfect. He had no idea that while he was planning a fake romantic getaway, I was planning my exit strategy. The next day, I made the call. I chose an investigator named Frank. He was a former police detective with 20 years of experience. His voice on the phone was gruff and professional. He did not ask too many questions. He just listened. I met him in a small, anonymous coffee shop in a part of town I never visited. Frank was a man in his 50s, with tired eyes that seemed to have seen everything. He did not look like the investigators in the movies. He looked like a tired accountant. I told him the story in a low voice, leaving out the emotion and sticking to the facts. The money, the lies, the secrecy. He listened patiently, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he took a sip of his black coffee. "The $2 million charge is your starting point," he said. "That is the thread we pull." "Where did he buy it?" I gave him the name of the jeweler. "Okay," he said. "I will start there. And I will put a tail on your husband. His phone records, his credit card statements not tied to the joint account, his daily movements. It will be discreet. He will not know." "How long will it take?" I asked. "Depends on what he is hiding," Frank said. "Sometimes they are sloppy. Sometimes they are smart. But they all make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes." I wrote him a check from a personal account I had maintained since before my marriage, a small fund my grandmother had left me. It was my emergency money. This felt like an emergency. As I left the coffee shop, I felt a strange mix of guilt and determination. I was paying a stranger to uncover the ugly truth of my life. But I was also taking control. I was no longer a passive victim of Mark's deception. I was an active participant in my own liberation. The waiting was the hardest part. Every day felt like a week. I had to pretend everything was normal. I had to smile at Mark, listen to his stories about work, and talk about a trip to Italy we both knew we would never take. The strain of the deception was immense. I felt like I was holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. A few days later, I found something on my own. I was tidying up Mark's study, a room I rarely entered. He was obsessively neat, but a piece of paper had fallen behind his desk. It was a receipt from a restaurant. A very expensive, very romantic restaurant. I recognized the name. We had gone there for our 5th anniversary. The date on the receipt was from 3 weeks ago, the night he was supposedly at a business dinner with clients. The receipt was for 2 people. And at the bottom, there was a name written next to a reservation time. The name was not mine. It was Chloe. Chloe. The name echoed in my head. It was a simple, pretty name. And it was the name of the woman who was with my husband, the woman he had taken to our special occasion restaurant, the woman for whom he had likely purchased a $2 million piece of jewelry. I folded the receipt and put it in my pocket. My hand did not shake. My heart did not race. I just felt a cold, hard certainty. This was not just a suspicion anymore. This was a fact. Her name was Chloe. That night, I had to attend a charity dinner with Mark. It was one of the many social obligations that came with our life. I wore a beautiful dress. I smiled for the cameras. I made small talk with people I barely knew. All the while, the name Chloe was a burning coal in my mind.
Mark was the perfect husband that night. He held my hand.
He put his arm around my waist. He told everyone how proud he was of me. He was a brilliant actor, and I was his unwilling co-star. During the dinner, his mother, Eleanor, came over to our table. She was dripping in diamonds, her own collection meticulously curated over a lifetime of wealth. She looked me up and down, her eyes critical. "Clara, that dress is interesting," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Thank you, Eleanor," I said, my own smile just as fake. "Mark tells me you have been a little worried lately," she continued, lowering her voice. "About finances. You really should not trouble yourself with that, dear. It is not a woman's place. Mark is so brilliant. He knows what he is doing. You just need to trust your husband." The condescension was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. She was not just dismissing my concerns. She was reinforcing the box Mark had put me in. The pretty, supportive, and ignorant wife. "Of course," I said, my voice sweet as poison. "I have complete faith in Mark." I looked at my husband. He was beaming, pleased that his mother was putting me in my place. They were a team. They had always been a team. And I had always been the outsider. I excused myself from the table and went to the ladies' room. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were clear. The hurt was still there, but it was buried deep under layers of anger and resolve. They thought I was weak. They thought I was a fool. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The game had changed, and I was going to write the new rules. The first report from Frank arrived a week after I hired him. It came in a plain manila envelope, delivered by a courier to a post office box I had rented. I took it to a quiet park to read it. My hands trembled as I opened the clasp. Inside were photographs and a typewritten summary. The photographs were grainy, taken from a distance, but the images were clear enough. It was Mark, and he was with a woman. She was young, beautiful, with long blonde hair and a confident smile. They were laughing, holding hands. They were kissing. The pictures were taken outside the same romantic restaurant from the receipt I had found. Her name was Chloe. Frank had confirmed it. Chloe Sterling, 28 years old. An art consultant, according to her social media profile, which was public and filled with pictures of her at exclusive parties and on luxurious vacations. Frank's report was concise and brutal. Mark had been seeing Chloe for 6 months. He had set her up in a luxury apartment downtown, an apartment leased by a shell corporation that Frank had traced back to Mark's company. He had bought her a car. He was paying for her entire life. The business trips, the late nights at the office, it was all a lie. A carefully constructed web of deception to hide his double life. I looked at the pictures of them together. They looked happy. They looked like a couple in love. A wave of nausea washed over me. This was not just a fling. This was a relationship. A serious one. And the $2 million purchase from the jeweler. It was not a random gift. It had to be a ring. An engagement ring. The thought hit me with the force of a physical blow. He was not just cheating on me. He was planning to replace me. I sat on the park bench for a long time, the envelope in my lap. The world around me seemed to fade away. The sounds of the city, the laughter of children playing nearby, it all became a distant hum. All I could see were those pictures. All I could think about was the depth of his betrayal. He had not just broken our vows. He had systematically dismantled our life together, piece by piece, while smiling to my face. The anger I felt was different now. It was no longer a hot, fiery rage. It was a cold, quiet fury. A deep, chilling certainty about what I had to do. This was not just about getting a divorce anymore. This was about justice. He was not going to be allowed to just walk away from our marriage, from our shared history, and start a new life with my money, leaving me with nothing but public humiliation. That night, I confronted Mark, but not in the way he would have expected. I did not scream or cry. I did not show him the pictures. I used his own methods against him. I became a performer, just like him. We were in the living room, a fire crackling in the hearth. He was reading the financial news on his tablet. "Mark," I said, my voice calm and pleasant. "I was thinking about that diamond investment. I think you are right. It is a brilliant move. I was just a little surprised by the amount, but I trust your judgment." He looked up, a slow, satisfied smile spreading across his face. "I am glad you see that, Clara. I told you it was a smart play." I was so impressed, in fact, I continued, that I mentioned it to my father today. Mark's smile faltered. My father was a retired lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense man who had always been a little suspicious of Mark's charm. "You what?" he said, his voice a little tight. "I just mentioned that you had found a wonderful investment opportunity in rare gems," I said innocently. He was very interested. He said he would love to talk to your jeweler about it, maybe get some advice for his own portfolio. What was the name of the jeweler again? I seemed to have forgotten. I watched as the color drained from his face. He knew my father. He knew my father would ask specific, pointed questions. He knew a jeweler would not discuss a client's investment with a third party. The lie was starting to unravel, and he could see the loose threads. I do not think that is a good idea," he stammered. "It is a private arrangement. The dealer is very discreet." "Oh, of course," I said, my smile unwavering. "I am sure he is." But father was so insistent. He even suggested we have the stone independently appraised for insurance purposes. He said for an asset of that value, it is standard procedure. He knows a wonderful appraiser. We should have it brought over from the vault next week, so we can get it done. Now he was panicking. I could see it in his eyes. The quick, darting movements. The slight sheen of sweat on his forehead. He had no stone. There was no vault. There was just a ring, likely sitting in a box somewhere, waiting for the right moment to be given to Chloe. "That will not be necessary, Clara," he said, his voice strained. "The jeweler is handling all of the insurance. It is part of the service. You do not need to worry about it." "But I am not worried, Mark," I said, my voice dripping with false sincerity. "I am excited. I want to be more involved. I want to learn. You said yourself that you wanted me to trust you. And I do. So, let us get the appraisal. Let us do this properly, together." I had him trapped. Every protest he made would only make him look more suspicious. Every excuse would be another crack in his story. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again. He was cornered, and he knew it. "We will talk about it later," he said finally, standing up abruptly. "I have some calls to make." He walked out of the room, his confident stride gone. I sat there listening to his retreating footsteps. The first crack had appeared in his perfect facade. And I was going to keep pushing, keep applying pressure, until the whole thing shattered into a million pieces. The fear he had tried to instill in me for years, the fear of being left with nothing, was gone. It had been replaced by a grim determination. I was not the one who should be afraid.
He was.
The second report from Frank was the one that changed everything. It arrived 2 weeks after the first. This time, I read it in my car, parked in an empty lot overlooking the city. The envelope contained a USB drive and a single sheet of paper. The paper said, "Watch the video. The gala is the target." My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely insert the drive into my laptop. I put on my headphones and clicked play. The video was from a hidden camera, likely planted by Frank in the restaurant where Mark and Chloe had dinner. The quality was surprisingly good. I could see them clearly, sitting at a corner table, a bottle of expensive champagne between them. They were celebrating something. "To us," Mark said, raising his glass. Chloe touched her glass to his, her eyes sparkling. "To us," she repeated. "I still cannot believe it. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." She was talking about the ring. "I knew it. Only the best for you," Mark said, his voice full of smug pride. $2 million. You are worth every penny." Chloe giggled, a high, tinkling sound that made my stomach churn. What about Clara? Is she going to be a problem? Mark waved his hand dismissively. Clara? Do not worry about Clara. She bought the whole investment story. She is so naive when it comes to money. She has no idea how any of it works. It is one of the things I always found convenient. The casual cruelty of his words stole the air from my lungs. Convenient. My trust, my love, my partnership. It was all just convenient for him. She will be completely blindsided, he continued, leaning forward conspiratorially. The plan is perfect. The annual Children's Hospital Gala is in 3 weeks. Everyone will be there. Our whole world. I will make a speech, talk about charity and new beginnings. And then I will call you to the stage and I will propose. In front of everyone. Chloe's eyes widened. In public? Oh, Mark, that is so romantic. It is not just romantic, he said, his voice dropping. It is strategic. When I do it that way, I control the narrative. I am the man making a grand, romantic gesture. Clara becomes the bitter, hysterical ex-wife who could not keep her man. No one will side with her. When I file for divorce the next day, everyone will already be on my side. I have been moving assets for months. My lawyer says she will be lucky to walk away with anything. I will paint her as unstable, as emotionally erratic. By the time she realizes what is happening, she will have nothing. No money, no social standing. Nothing. I stopped the video. I could not watch anymore. I felt a profound physical sickness. This was not just an affair. This was a premeditated attack. A character assassination. He was not just planning to leave me. He was planning to destroy me, to erase me from the life I had helped him build, and to do it in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. He wanted to strip me of my dignity, my reputation, and my security, all in one fell swoop. The man on that screen was a monster. A smiling, charming monster who had been sleeping next to me for 10 years. The love I once felt was now completely and utterly gone, burned away by the acid of his betrayal. In its place was something I had never felt before. A pure, unadulterated rage that was so cold and so clear it felt like a superpower. He wanted to control the narrative. He wanted a public spectacle. Fine. He would get one. But it would not be the one he was planning. He thought I was naive. He thought I was weak. He thought I was convenient. He had made a fatal miscalculation. He had mistaken my kindness for weakness. He had mistaken my trust for stupidity. I sat in my car for over an hour, the city lights twinkling below me. I was no longer the victim in this story. I was the architect of his downfall. I started to make a plan. A cold, meticulous, step-by-step plan. He wanted to use our money to humiliate me. I would use our money to humiliate him. He wanted to do it in front of everyone. So would I. My next call was to my lawyer. Not the family lawyer Mark used, but a new one. A shark. A woman named Jessica Thorne, who had a reputation for being the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city. I met her the next day. I did not cry. I did not get emotional. I laid out the facts. I gave her the receipt, the photographs, and the USB drive. She watched the video in her office, her face impassive. When it was over, she looked at me. He is not just arrogant, she said. He is stupid. He put his whole plan on tape. What can we do? I asked. Anything we want, she said, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her face. We can destroy him. The financial fraud alone is enough to give you a massive settlement. The infidelity, the planned public humiliation. This is a gift. What do you want, Clara? I thought for a moment. What did I want? I wanted my life back. I wanted my security. But more than that, I wanted him to feel what he had planned for me to feel. Powerless. Humiliated. Small. I want to let his plan play out, I said. Up to a point. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Go on. He wants to propose at the gala, I said. I want him to get down on one knee. I want him to open that ring box. And then, I want to take it all away from him, in front of everyone he is trying to impress. Jessica's smile widened. I like the way you think. And I know exactly how to do it. We spent the next 2 weeks preparing. It was a whirlwind of activity, all of it happening in secret. I met with Jessica Daly. We brought in a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Mark had tried to hide. The accountant found shell corporations, offshore accounts, assets moved into his mother's name. The scale of his financial deception was even bigger than I had imagined. He was trying to steal millions from me. I also had another conversation with Mr. Harris, the banker. This time, I went to his office in person. I told him the truth. I did not show him the video, but I told him about Mark's plan to defraud me and the company we had built together. I told him I had legal counsel and that we were preparing for a divorce. Mr. Harris looked grave. He was a man of integrity, and what Mark was doing was a profound breach of the trust he placed in his clients. "I am so sorry to hear this, Mrs. Vance," he said. "What he is doing is not just immoral. It is illegal."
"I know," I said.
"And I need your help." The ring he purchased. The $2 million charge. It was made on a specific credit card tied to our joint investment account, correct? He checked his system. "Yes, that is correct. The Platinum Reserve card." On the night of the gala, I said, my voice steady, "I am going to need you to do something for me. When I give you the signal, I need you to freeze that card and decline that specific transaction. I need you to flag it as potentially fraudulent and reverse the payment." Mr. Harris looked at me, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought he might refuse. It was an unusual request. "Under normal circumstances, I would need Mark's authorization," he began. "These are not normal circumstances," I interrupted. "He used our joint funds to purchase an item for his mistress as part of a conspiracy to commit financial fraud against me, his partner in that account. I have evidence to prove it. My lawyer is prepared to subpoena you and the bank's records if necessary, but I was hoping we could handle this more discreetly." He was silent for a long moment. Then he gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Given the evidence of financial misconduct you have presented and the fact that you are a co-owner of the account, I believe I have a fiduciary duty to protect your assets from fraudulent activity. What will be the signal?" "I will call you," I said. "That is all." "I will be standing by," he said. The final piece of the plan involved the jeweler, a man named Antoine Dubois. His reputation was everything. He catered to the city's elite. The $2 million ring was not just a sale for him, it was a status symbol, a piece of marketing. Jessica's team did some research. They discovered that while the sale had been processed, the actual funds had not yet cleared. High-value transactions like that often had a clearing period. Mark had used the Platinum card, which had a high limit, but the final settlement was still pending. This was our opening. Jessica drafted a letter. It was a polite, professional letter from her office to Monsieur Dubois's office. It did not mention infidelity or divorce. It simply stated that her client, Mrs. Clara Vance, had become aware of a significant transaction that she had not authorized, and that there were concerns of financial impropriety regarding the use of the joint account. It advised him that the transaction was now under review and could be subject to reversal. It was a warning shot. It was designed to make him nervous. A public scandal involving a fraudulent sale could ruin his pristine reputation. We sent it via courier 2 days before the gala. We knew it would put him on high alert. The day of the gala arrived. I felt a strange, surreal calm. I spent the afternoon at a spa. I had my hair and makeup done professionally. I chose my dress with care. It was a stunning, elegant gown in a deep shade of crimson. It was a warrior's color. When Mark saw me, his eyes widened in appreciation. "Clara, you look breathtaking," he said. "Thank you, dear," I said with a small smile. "It is a big night. I wanted to look my best." He seemed pleased. He probably thought I was making an effort for us. He thought I was playing my part. He had no idea that I was in a completely different play and that the final act was about to begin. We arrived at the gala. The ballroom was glittering with chandeliers and diamonds. The air was thick with perfume and power. Everyone was there. All our friends, our business associates, our entire social circle. The people whose opinions Mark valued more than anything. I saw Chloe across the room. She was wearing a shimmering gold dress. She looked beautiful, and she looked triumphant. She kept glancing at Mark, a secret, knowing smile on her face. She thought this was her coronation night. I played my role perfectly. I smiled. I laughed. I mingled. I let Mark parade me around on his arm. I was the perfect, supportive wife. All the while, my phone was in my clutch, a cold, heavy weight. Mr. Harris's number was on my screen, ready to be dialed. The time for the speeches arrived. The hospital director spoke first. Then the mayor. Then it was Mark's turn. He was one of the event's main sponsors. He walked to the stage, a confident, charming smile on his face. The room fell silent. He was a good public speaker. His voice was smooth and persuasive. "Good evening, everyone," he began. "It is an honor to be here tonight, to support such a worthy cause. The Children's Hospital does incredible work, giving hope to families, giving a future to children. And tonight, I want to talk about the future." He paused for dramatic effect. The crowd was captivated. "The future is about new beginnings," he continued, his eyes scanning the room. "It is about leaving the past behind and embracing a bold, new chapter. It is about finding a love that is true and pure, a love that inspires you to be the best version of yourself." I could see Chloe from my table. She was glowing, her eyes fixed on him. She was ready for her moment. I felt a flicker of pity for her. She was a pawn in his game, just as I had been. She thought she was winning a prize. She had no idea the prize was a fraud. "And I have found that love," Mark declared, his voice ringing with emotion. "And I want to honor that love tonight, in front of all of you, my friends, my family." My heart was pounding now, a steady, heavy drumbeat in my chest. This was it. "Chloe," he said, his voice soft. "Chloe Sterling, would you please join me on stage?" A murmur went through the crowd. People turned to look. Who was Chloe Sterling? I saw the confused glances, the whispers. The drama was beginning. Chloe walked towards the stage, her head held high. She looked like a queen accepting her crown. She stood next to him, and he took her hand. He turned to face her, ignoring the confused whispers from the audience. He looked only at her. "Chloe," he said, his voice thick with fake emotion. "You have changed my life. You have shown me what true happiness is. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you." He reached into his jacket pocket. The entire room was holding its breath. He pulled out a small, velvet box. He got down on one knee. "This is the moment. My hand is in my clutch, my finger hovering over the call button on my phone. The world seems to move in slow motion." I see his thumb flick open the lid of the box. Inside, a diamond so large it seems to capture all the light in the room. It is magnificent. A $2 million monument to his lies. Chloe gasps. Her hands fly to her mouth. Tears well up in her eyes. The crowd is in stunned silence. Some are starting to look at me, at my table. They are waiting for my reaction. I have none. My face is a blank mask. Mark begins his speech to her. "Chloe Sterling, will you make me the happiest man in the world? Will you marry me?" As the last word leaves his mouth, I press the call button. The phone rings once. "Now," I say into the phone. Just one word. I hang up. On the stage, Chloe is nodding, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispers. "Yes, of course, yes." Mark's face is a picture of triumph. He has done it. He has won. He starts to slip the ring from the box. And then I see him. A man in a tailored suit, walking purposefully towards the stage. It is Antoine Dubois, the jeweler. His face is grim. He has an assistant with him. He walks right up to the stage, ignoring the gasps from the crowd. He speaks to Mark, his voice low but clear enough for those nearby to hear. "Mr. Vance, I am sorry to interrupt." Mark looks up, his triumphant smile frozen on his face.
"Antoine?"
"What is it?" "This is not a good time." "I am afraid it must be now," the jeweler says, his voice firm. "There has been a problem with the payment for this item." Mark's face changes. The smile vanishes, replaced by confusion, then annoyance. "A problem?
"What are you talking about?"
The payment went through." No, Mr. Vance, Antoine says, holding up his phone, which has clearly just received an alert. The payment has just been declined. The transaction has been flagged for fraud and reversed by your bank. The item is not paid for. I need you to return it. Immediately, the color drains from Mark's face. He looks like he has been struck by lightning. He stares at the jeweler, then at the ring in his hand, then out into the crowd. His eyes find mine. I am just sitting there at my table, watching him. I do not smile. I do not frown. I just watch. And in that moment he knows. He knows it was me. This is a mistake. Mark sputters, his voice a hoarse whisper. There must be some mistake. There is no mistake, the jeweler says, his voice colder now. He is protecting his brand. He will not be associated with a fraud. His assistant steps forward, holding a small, discreet bag. The ring, Mr. Vance.
Now.
Chloe is staring at them, her fairy tale proposal turning into a nightmare. Mark? What is he talking about? She asks, her voice trembling. Mark cannot speak. He is paralyzed. He looks from the jeweler to Chloe to me. He is trapped, exposed, and utterly humiliated. The entire room is watching. The whispers are growing louder. People are pulling out their phones, recording. The jeweler loses his patience. He reaches out and plucks the ring from the velvet box. He places it carefully into the bag his assistant is holding. The box in Mark's hand is now empty. His grand gesture, his $2 million symbol of a new life, is gone. He is still on one knee, frozen in a tableau of utter failure. His face is ashen. His mouth opens and closes, but no sound comes out. His eyes are wide with panic and disbelief. He looks at me one last time, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. And then he collapses. He does not faint. It is not a heart attack. He just crumples to the stage, his body folding in on itself. He curls into a ball, his hands over his head, and he begins to hyperventilate. A full, complete, and public breakdown. The room erupts. People are shouting. Medics are being called. Chloe stands there, abandoned and horrified, the spotlight she craved now a harsh, unforgiving glare. I stand up from my table. I smooth down my crimson dress. I take one last look at the chaos on the stage, at the man who tried to destroy me, now destroyed himself. And I walk away. I do not look back. The narrative he wanted to control was now mine.
And it was a story of justice.
The aftermath was immediate and spectacular. By the time I reached the exit of the ballroom, my phone was already buzzing with texts and missed calls. The video of Mark's collapse, of the jeweler taking back the ring, was already going viral among the city's elite. The story spread faster than a wildfire. Mark's public humiliation was total and complete. I did not go home. I went to a hotel suite that Jessica, my lawyer, had booked for me under a false name. Sarah was waiting for me there with a bottle of champagne. The expensive kind. She hugged me the moment I walked in. I saw the video, she said, her eyes wide. Clara, it was
epic.
I have never seen anything like it. He got the public spectacle he wanted, I said, my voice steady. I was surprised by how calm I felt. I had expected to feel a surge of triumph, or maybe even a pang of regret. Instead, I just felt
quiet.
It was the quiet of a long and brutal war finally being over. He got what he deserved, Sarah said, pouring 2 glasses of champagne. To us. To your new beginning. We clinked our glasses. The champagne was crisp and cold. It tasted like freedom. The first call from his mother came an hour later. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. On the 5th try, I decided to answer. I put the phone on speaker. Clara, what have you done? Eleanor shrieked, her voice hysterical. What did you do to my son? He is in the hospital. He is disgraced. You have ruined him. Hello, Eleanor, I said, my voice calm. I did not do anything to Mark. Mark did this to himself. You are a monster, she screamed. A vindictive, horrible woman. After everything he gave you. What he gave me. I said, my voice dangerously soft. Let me tell you what he gave me, Eleanor. He gave me a life built on lies. He was having an affair for 6 months. He was planning to leave me with nothing. He was going to publicly humiliate me and then steal millions of dollars that I helped him earn. I have proof, Eleanor. I have video of him and his mistress planning the whole thing. I have financial records from a forensic accountant showing every dollar he tried to hide, some of it in your name. Would you like my lawyer to send you a copy? There was dead silence on the other end of the line. The screaming stopped. The hysteria vanished. All I could hear was her breathing. So you have a choice, I continued. You can continue to call me and scream, in which case I will make sure this evidence becomes very, very public. Or you can accept that your son is a liar and a thief who got what he deserved, and you can never, ever contact me again. The silence stretched for another 10 seconds. Then I heard a click. She had hung up. Sarah looked at me, her mouth open.
Wow, she said.
That was impressive. I am done being quiet, I said. I am done being made to feel small. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. With the mountain of evidence we had, Mark had no choice but to settle. He could not afford for this to go to a public court. He could not risk the video being played for a judge. Jessica was brilliant. She was relentless. She tore his legal team apart. The divorce settlement was overwhelmingly in my favor. I got the house. I got 50% of the company I had helped found, which I immediately sold back for a massive cash payout. I got a significant portion of the assets he had tried to hide. The forensic accountant had found everything. By the time it was over, I was a very wealthy woman in my own right. My future was secure. It was mine. Chloe disappeared from the scene almost immediately. Her social media went dark. I heard through the grapevine that she had left the city. Her dream of marrying a rich man had exploded in the most public way possible. I imagine her life was not very easy after that. She had hitched her wagon to a falling star. Mark's life, as he knew it, was over. He lost his business. His partners forced him out. No one wanted to be associated with him. His reputation was shattered beyond repair. His social circle, the people whose approval he craved, shunned him completely. He had become a cautionary tale, a punchline at the very dinner parties he used to dominate. He had built his entire identity on the foundations of money and status. When those were gone, there was nothing left of him. Several months after the divorce was finalized, I saw him. I was walking into a small cafe, a place he never would have set foot in during our old life. He was sitting at a table by the window alone. He looked diminished. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by a rumpled shirt. The confident posture was gone, replaced by a weary slump. He looked older. He looked broken. He saw me and his eyes widened. He stood up, knocking his chair slightly. He took a step towards me. Clara, he said, his voice raspy.
Please.
Can we talk? I stopped. I looked at him. The man I had once loved. The man who had tried to destroy me. I felt nothing.
No anger. No pity.
Just a vast, empty space where my love for him used to be. There is nothing to talk about, Mark, I said. My voice was not unkind. It was just final. I am sorry, he whispered.
I am so sorry.
His apology was meaningless. It was the apology of a man who was sorry he got caught, not sorry for what he did. It was a last, desperate attempt to get something from me, a reaction, forgiveness, anything. I gave him nothing. I did not say another word. I just turned and walked out of the cafe. I did not need to hear his excuses. I did not need his apologies. I had already written the end of our story. I sometimes think about that night at the gala, about the look on his face when he knew he had lost. It was not a look of remorse. It was a look of pure shock. The shock of a man who had never faced a single consequence in his entire life. He truly believed he was invincible. He believed his money and his charm could get him anything he wanted. He never imagined that the quiet, supportive wife he had so conveniently underestimated would be the one to bring his entire world crashing down. He had planned to make me small. He had planned to leave me with nothing. But in the end, he was the one who was left with nothing. He was the one who was made to feel small. I did not set out to destroy him. I only set out to save myself. But I learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to stop giving warnings and start creating consequences. And he finally learned what it feels like when the consequences arrive. He finally learned what it feels like to be powerless. And that, I realized, was the only justice that truly mattered. I had my freedom, my security, and my dignity. He had nothing. And the silence I gave him in that cafe was the final, perfect word in our story. It was the sound of my victory. A quiet, calm, and absolute victory.